than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this saved into your, you know which drive you put that?
This thing about debris just mind-boggling.
Kathy,
Asset track.
you know, Diane did tell us. She was absent. She did tell
Yeah,
us.
I think Mr. Chandler told me that both were no.
Yeah. She's the whole month.
For the whole month?
Yeah, it's a PDF. You don't have it in PowerPoint.
So that's
We still
what
have it.
it's debris.
You still have the PowerPoint.
That's kind of, still working on the priorities and if it
Is
doesn't.
it in the computer?
Seven
I haven't
months.
heard, I read it.
Okay, good.
Okay, let's go to minute track.
Yeah. I don't think she's flipped the switch.
Let's go to that.
On record.
Call to order the City of Lincoln City City Council meeting, Monday, May 13th, 2019, a little after 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Anderson,
Here.
Councilor Casper,
Me? Oh, I'm here.
Councilor Hinton,
Here.
Councilor Hoagland is excused, Councilor Coos is excused, Councilor Mark,
Here.
Councilor Parsons.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. Starting a little late. I think there's a joke there somewhere. How many guys does it take to pull up a PowerPoint presentation? 3, evidently, was the answer.
One of them is the IT
Yeah,
director.
and one's the IT guy. Where is Tony? Anyway, our apologies. Going with the agenda tonight, we have a consent agenda. Meeting number 1 is minutes of the regular meeting March 25th, 2019. 2 is minutes of regular meeting April 8th, 2019. 3 is minutes of special meeting April 15th, 2019. And number 4 is minutes of the regular meeting April 22nd, 2019.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just want to add I wasn't here for the April 8th meeting, but I did watch it on Channel 4.
Okay.
I
Any-
move, Mayor, I move to accept the minutes as presented on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda with a second. Mr. Mark, all those in favor, say aye.
I have a
Aye.
comment.
Oppose? With a no?
No, I just said I had a comment before you,
Oh,
during discussion.
okay.
Gotcha. I just wanted to say that I did forward some corrections
Gotcha.
to the city
yeah,
recorders. so-
but nothing of-
So that's, no.
just-
it's-
Okay. All right, so the consent agenda is approved. We have comments from the public. And as there's a list in the back of people signed up, let me read this article, list comments first. April. Article 1, Section 8 of the Oregon Constitution provides, no law shall be passed restraining the free expression of opinion or restricting the right to speak, write, or print freely on any subject whatever. But every person shall be responsible for the abuse of this right. Be advised, statements and comments by citizens under, quote, comments from citizens present, unquote, or on public hearing or public comment items are solely the opinions and statements of the speakers, and are not statements of the City of Lincoln City and do not represent the opinions of the city, its officers, and employees. With that, we have Sean. You're the only person that signed up.
I've been known to volunteer for a lot of punishment. Did you guys get a chance to review this proposal for land use?
No, why don't you give us your name
Oh.
and then tell us what you got there.
My name is Sean Kier, Lincoln City resident. I am wanting to discuss this budget proposal for land acquisition to create some affordable housing in town. And I presented this last week at the budget meeting. I believe the majority of you were there. Did you guys get a chance to look it over?
Yeah, I'm assuming some did. This is really not a time for a discussion, so if you have some comments.
Well, I know that I have limited time with you, so I wanted to know if you guys had questions about it so that I could help answer them and maybe give you a better idea of that this is a very necessary budget spend.
I would make the suggestion that you corner us sometime
You look like
during
you're
the
in
day.
a corner right now.
Yeah. But like I say, this is not a time for discussion. So you can use your 5 minutes if you'd like to tell us something. I'll check with the council to see if they have questions, and they could certainly ask, but it's really not a dialogue time.
Okay, well, I was asked by the city manager to come again and discuss this with you guys this time. I'm kind of under the impression maybe we could use 5 minutes to have a quick Q&A about this, but it looks
Yeah.
like you guys haven't looked at this.
Well, one, I wasn't prepared for it, so I wasn't aware of that, and it's not normal, so I'm not prepared to
It's-
talk to you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm wondering, since this is full city council and not just the budget committee, and there might be more interest in the public watching on TV to maybe just hit the high points, it might be helpful
Okay.
to draw the public in.
Sure, thank you, Rick. Well, I know we are all very concerned about affordable housing in our town, or lack thereof. One of the biggest setbacks for affordable housing is the cost of the land around here, because we're at the beach. It's very expensive to buy land and then to build a home. We already work with, as Diana had said to me last week, that we work with Proud Ground, a nonprofit that runs land use programs. There is a lot on the north end in the Villages, in the Palisades development, that is for sale, 6.5 acres. It's $800,000. The owner likes this proposal and will add $50,000 of his own money towards it, and this will give Proud Ground 50 to 60 lots to build affordable housing and take out the cost of the land. Should make things a lot easier for many, many people.
Sean,
Yeah.
the property that you speak of, the 6.5 acres, you said it's near Palisades?
It's lot 62 on Northeast Voyage. It's right at the end of, or right at the start, the south end of where they extended Voyage Avenue through. It's right at the end there.
Is that the one that has a lot of trees near it?
It's got a lot of alders on it.
Alders?
Yeah.
It butts up right to the Palisades, does it not?
Yeah, it was a part of it, but now the developer is selling that lot. They do believe that all of the home styles that I've recommended to go with this to fit on these lots will fit in with the whole aesthetics of the planned neighborhood.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor? May I invite you to maybe speak to us, in your leisure time, because we might have more questions.
Sure. When would,
Individually.
anytime,
Okay.
let me know when you would like to do that. I did put my email address on this, so if you have that, you should be able to contact me. Or I could leave something with somebody before I go.
That'd be good.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. And did anybody else wish to come for public comment that didn't have the opportunity to sign up? Seeing none. If I could, council's concurrence, I'd like to make a agenda modification if I could. And right here, would like to substitute L14, which is the Sustainability Committee, recommendation for a committee member. Michael Edwards is actually in the audience, and if we could pull him up and just pull this item, that'd be great. Is all right with you?
I agree.
Okay. Michael, you want to come up so people can see who you are? Just,
Either chair.
yeah. Well, you could turn this way. They can watch you on TV.
Yeah.
So I understand Councilor Casper and Councilor Hinton did the interviews, and would you share with us
Sure.
your thoughts?
Okay, I'll go then. We did. I just want to say thank you to Michael for putting in his application for this particular committee. We want to get it going, and now you make a quorum. Perhaps we still have to vote, but that would be great. I just wanted to let people know that this is for the Sustainability Committee, and Michael is a bicyclist enthusiast. He transports himself around town. Don't hit him. It's kind of scary out there, I hear, in some parts of the city. He's also interested in all things environmental, or so he told us. He has a master's in history, has worked as a special ed teacher, and is currently working at the hospital. He has recently moved to Lincoln City, so wanted to get more involved in his chosen place to live. And I don't know if Councilor Casper.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that Michael's a freelance writer, and so having a history background, he's familiar with research and writing, which I think is a delightful skill to have. And he's well-spoken, cordial, enthusiastic, and curious, and I think those are good qualities that will be needed on our committee. So we're recommending approval of Michael for the Sustainability Committee.
If I could, I would like to suggest, though, that he filled the UGB/city resident position that expires on October 7th, 2020, because Kathy's shaking her head, because otherwise his term would be over in 5 months. And okay. Our city recorder is looking through.
We have multiple terms that they're only in here for partial, and then we have to redo them, but I think there was a specific reason why I had to put him in that position,
In the,
short-term position.
okay. Is there, Attorney Apichello, I wonder, is there a way we can extend a term from the bench just to avoid having to go through this process in 5 months or a short time?
Not knowing the reason why
Okay.
Kathy is thinking there was a reason why you had to have this, we're going to have to look at it. You could include a motion that says, and he'd be reappointed for a new term if there isn't a stop on it, but I don't know what that might be. So if you want to try that, we could try
Yeah,
it,
just to save the
or we can bring it back. And
process again, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, what is the process to renew a term? Is it,
You'd go through you'd make application again
Apply
and
again.
do the interview process again, and
I believe
It
this
should-
is a 3-year term, right?
yeah, I don't know. But I would see if it wasn't recommended for the urban renewal one, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's nice to keep that one open, if, I'm assuming Michael lives in the city, so it's nice to keep the urban renewal one open for opportunities for, urban growth boundary, I'm sorry.
Right.
Not urban
No,
renewal.
I agree with that reasoning.
So it was just time,
I just, the process,
Right.
and the guy works, and it's,
so what, could we amend the motion then, or if the motion is being made to include looking at a rollover of the next term on this, whatever slot you're in, if it's a shorter than normal?
So we have 5 positions. 2 of them are filled. This will be the 3rd one. And the only term ending dates or expiration dates are 10/7 of 19, 10/7 of 19, or 10/7 of 20. So even if we did put him in the UGB city resident position, the other 2 that we would probably be doing would still have an end date of 10/7/19.
And so I think the issue, if I can clarify, is that's roughly 5 months from now. So if we made the motion to roll, an automatic roll to extend the term, you know, when this term, whatever he gets into,
Right.
expires, to automatically, without having to have him go through the application and interview process again.
You could, again, it is contrary to our process, but if you wanted to make a motion to facilitate what you're asking for, you would make a motion to appoint him to finish the 5 months in the term, and then reappoint him for the following 3-year term, assuming he still qualifies at the end of 5 months. So he hasn't moved out of the city or UGB or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, Mr. Parsons.
Aren't these all city resident positions? On our website, it never lists anywhere for urban growth boundary position or anything. It just all says city resident.
There are variations in the different committees, so some of them specify.
Right, that's why this one doesn't.
So how about if I move to appoint Michael Edwards to finish the 5 months term and reappoint for the 3-year term when his current term extends, if he still qualifies.
Second.
We have a motion with a second.
Can we get the language Sustainability Committee into that motion?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah, it's fine. You don't have to
No,
redo it, so
okay.
it's in there.
thank you.
Sustainability Committee. And you're all right with the second?
I am.
All
It
right.
was my idea.
All,
Just kidding.
tough night. All those in favor of the recommendation motion, say
Aye.
aye. With opposed, say nay. Hearing none. You're it?
Lord.
All right.
I have a question, though.
Sure, certainly.
I'm not a bicycle rider, because traffic scares me.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, would it be could it be a sustainability committee role to come up with suggestions for things the city might do to improve bicycle riding in town? Is that
Well,
would that fit?
let me make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Prior to this long extent of no one interested in Sustainability Committee, the committee was filled with bicyclists who did a pedestrian and bike master plan. So I would recommend Michael and committee could look at that, and especially with his interest. But it had all sorts of information of which that committee became big advocates at budget time to make sure whenever we were talking about roads or public works, that they reminded us of some of their initiatives and things they had already identified that would help the bicyclists. So it's there.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
there's a link to that under our Community Sustainability Committee on our webpage, but that link is broken.
Okay.
Get that fixed.
There's-
possibly?
Mr. Mayor, there's also a draft from a resolution 2007.29, and some of the things also in the Sustainability Committee include pollution and toxins, reduce and reuse waste, resources, climate, public mindset regarding consumption. So there's other things inclusive,
Right.
and so I think they'll have to develop as we go along.
Exactly. And I remember talking to the other two that have been appointed had a different vent of interest too. So thus the fun of a committee of focusing.
Right.
But-
And climate change was brought up at the interview, and that the city's response to climate change and what the city
Yeah.
can do, and I would be interested in doing some research on that as well,
Great.
so.
Any questions of us that you might have?
Just probably nothing that needs to be talked about here, just, I guess, when would the meetings be?
As soon as we get you a quorum.
He is the quorum.
What is
On the
there, a
third
committee
one.
of five?
It's committee of 5.
So you
So
would
we
make,
have a quorum, and we've already discussed
Great.
that we will be in contact with you. We'll send you a letter, and Lindsay will be in contact with you on the meetings and what you need.
so the planning department staffs that committee. So
All right.
how's that?
You'll
All
get
right.
in contact with me? All right.
Thank you very much for applying and getting on board.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. We have a presentation, a 20-year service recognition. Oscar, are you going to bring the chief with you or just come alone?
I got their own photographer.
Oh, boy. I,
The mayor already has it.
all right. Now, we need you on the mic, though, because, so sit him down.
You first.
That's pretty hard with the chairs that have armrests.
Oh, they got armrest, we
Yeah.
should have got, it's a test.
All right. Mr. Mayor and Council, it is my distinct pleasure this evening to be here with Sergeant Oscar Escalante to recognize him for 20 years of service with the city of Lincoln City. And in addition to that, I'd like to recognize him for 32 years of total service as a law enforcement officer, as he spent 12 years with the sheriff's office prior to coming on board with the Lincoln City Police Department. And 32 years, I've been in Lincoln County 31 since I moved up here in '88, and I've had the pleasure of being Oscar's partner for all of those years in various capacities. And the city of Lincoln City is well served by a dedicated man of valor that has done amazing things in his career, not the least of which was the decade or so that he spent in our schools with our youth as our SRO. In fact, it's even more than that, because I know when we took him out the last time and promoted him, that there were kids that had been, he had been their SRO for their entire school career here in Lincoln City. But we took him out of there and made him one of our supervisors, and that's been one of the best decisions that we've made since I've been here. His team loves him, the citizens of our community love him, and it just gives me great pleasure to give him this recognition tonight. It's well deserved.
Sergeant, what do you have to say for yourself?
I have had fun. It's been a fun ride. I'm enjoying myself. I guess that's the biggest thing, is enjoying what you're doing. And we have to find ways to do that, obviously, in this profession. So I usually pick on the younger folks. But all I can say is just there's a bar that's been set by the chief. And one thing I know is that whatever bar a person, supervisor, boss, sets, your team will meet. If you set it low, they'll meet that. If you set it high, they'll meet that. And the chief has set a high bar. And as a result, everybody in this department has stepped up. I was telling him the other day how I wish I had about 10 or 15 more years, because I'm pretty excited to see the direction of our department within the city. There's a lot of great things going on. If you don't know the men and women that work on the other side of the highway, there are a lot of great men and women over there. They have a lot of great ideas, a lot of young folks with energy. It's one of the things I wish is that 10 or 15 years younger, I had a little that kind of energy. But this is a great department, and I think it will be for years to come with the standard that Chief Palmer has set. And I'm real happy to be able to work under him for this long and to have that leadership and mentoring. So I hope I can continue doing it for a few more years and see some of these young folks grow into some very established officers here in town. And I know there's great things happening with the new building and all. Everybody's pretty excited. I'm the naysayer of the bunch. When Killian was here, I said, I've heard it. When I see the building, I'll believe it. Now they've been digging. I guess they got concrete poured today. It may be here before I retire, so we'll see. But thank you for the honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sergeant, for the time you spent. And I'm just dying to know, is the decade plus that you spent as an SRO has readily well-equipped you to be sergeant and kind of manage the cats, as you might say, young people?
Actually, it is, because that young energy and without direction there and here now under them, And actually, it keeps me on my toes. So, like you say, herding cats.
Good for you. Any questions of the sergeant?
More of a comment. I coach a lot of youth sports, and I've heard your name from a lot of kids in a positive light more than I've heard their own teachers' names. So,
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because we all know as young kids become young adults and they begin to make their own choices, sometimes they don't make the choices that their parents or that we would like them to make, or as an SRO would like them to make. And every now and then, one of our guys will arrest somebody and go, oh, that used to be one of my DARE students. That's just the way it is. But more times than not, a lot of them. Matter of fact, there is a young lady by the name of Cicely Gouge who works for the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. She was one of my DARE students. She's now a police officer. There's another one that works at another agency over in the valley. And so it's really nice to see that, they somehow I influenced them to make the choice to take this on this lifestyle as a career.
Good for you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
20 years. I've got a certificate for you, suitable for framing. You, of course, supplied the frame. Chief, thanks, Oscar. Nice job. If we could, our next, we have a presentation, Ken Murphy, on emergency preparedness goals.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'll learn how the computer system works, so it won't take 3 people next time.
Well, thank you for taking your tie and coat off. Last time we saw you,
I followed
you've
your
loosened
direction.
up. Thank you.
I didn't want to set a bad standard here and get myself in trouble, so.
Well, now we're going to get you trained for technology, so.
Yeah, technology's next, so. Well, anyway, thank you for having me tonight, and I did want to initially pass on my appreciation to everyone for having emergency preparations as part of the City Council's priorities. As you might imagine, that is not necessarily a subject that every city, the elected officials embrace, or that type of thing. So I appreciate that very much. It gives me direction, gives me hope, and gives me the will to really pursue things hard to make things better for Lincoln City. As you can see on the presentation, one of the things that you'll see, I think on my signature block on emails and many products, one thing that I've believed in for the last 20 years that I've done this is today's preparations will determine tomorrow's outcomes. No different than whether you have a spare tire in your car and you're going on a long trip. Things can change and will determine those outcomes. I like to always tell stories and a little bit of analogy of what I'm going to present, and tonight just a quick little analogy of what I'm doing in emergency preparations. It's like remodeling a house. It's got good bones, but need to tear out a couple walls, make a open space, redo the plumbing and the wiring and bring everything up to date and to code, and put in some new appliances and make it efficient and effective. So as we go through this tonight, keep in mind that a majority of that work is based on that analogy. I'm not going to go into great detail on these. As most of you, I think, know, I'm more than willing to sit down and talk, and we can go through this stuff in great detail. So I will go through what I'm working on. Oops. Okay, update and promulgate the City Emergency Operations Plan. That won't take too long to do, just some real quick updates to make sure that we have the right processes and products in place. And then I do want to bring it forward to the city council and have you agree upon it and affix your signature if appropriate. Second area is continuity of operations. Very important. No disaster happens when we're all in town. We're all available. We have to have at least 1 or 2 deep in every position that has authority or budget power and that type of thing. So I think that one is very crucial in how the city is going to operate. If we're not all available or we can't get together physically, we have to do things by phone or ham radio or whatever the case may be. So that one I think is very important to get done sooner than later. The third bullet, I won't go into great detail. There's at the end of the presentation, there's 2 pages of natural hazard mitigation plan projects for the city. The reason this is important, without it, you don't get extra money if you get a declaration from FEMA. And that can be quite a bit of money depending on how it works and how it happens. They are all very good projects. They're things to help the city. Some are short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And actually, one of the short-term one is a new police department. So we'll check that off the box. But we can discuss that at another time. That's due for an update over the next year to a year and a half. We'll be doing that with the county and different things. The second one that will come off that list is moving the buses out of Taft. So mitigation things to help so that we don't suffer greater losses. Fourth one is already completed thanks to our great city attorney and the city council in the past, and looking at ordinances that give the city the capabilities to make adjustments to the ordinances and the rules of how the city operates during an emergency. And we'll get into that a little bit later in training that I have for you all. Okay, develop 2 emergency operations centers. Obviously, we're going to have a new one at the police department, and it is my goal to make it as state-of-the-art as we possibly can. So we'll be working on that. Currently, we have this building and the Public Works facility as our emergency operations centers, but I want to develop them into something very mobile, laptops. In the best of cases, you should be able to do it on the hood of your car. And sometimes that is the only thing that you have available to you to do that. So we'll be working on that. To do that, I'm working now on staffing the Emergency Operations Center, 2 12-hour shifts, and how we can do that. The next bullet, develop staff and support of the 24-hour operations. Some of it is relatively simple, some of it is complicated. Councilor Casper and I are talking tonight about a debris management plan. That requires finesse at best on how we deal with those type of things during a disaster. So we'll be developing that. That's something that just will never leave the list. It is ongoing. Same as the next one, actually develop training and staff on the incident command system. Constant turnover, people, not a constant, but turnover enough. And people have to be trained. The training does change over time. What the incident command system was 10 or 15 years ago is different. The country and different organizations have learned different ways of doing business. So I think that will be something that we just go through. Each new employee is given a certain amount of training to initially start during their probationary in their first year in service to the city. And then, as I mentioned, the last bullet on this page is training and inform the City Council on disaster preparedness and readiness. I have a session, it's about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on questions, about the minimum requirements and things that we would ask the City Council to do in an emergency. And part of our Emergency Operations Center is a policy group, which includes you and the City Attorney and the City Manager. And these are what I call, the cup of goodwill session, how you can make things go really well or how you can empty the cup of goodwill with a bad decision. And it's nothing spectacular. It's very simple do's and don'ts and how things operate and recommendations and how the mayor and the city council can deal with disasters when they hit the city. Next here is evaluate city structures and infrastructure. This will take a while to really take a look and make some analysis and evaluate the city structures, what may or may not survive, what's at risk. I think Lincoln City has been very fortunate and very forward-looking at the many things that are moved out of the tsunami zone. Buildings being retrofitted, new hospital retrofitted, police station. So I think in a lot of cases we're probably, in probably pretty good shape compared to a lot of communities up and down the Oregon coast or even in the valley. But this will just be a really honest look at what structures that we may have to deal with that may not survive. Second bullet on that, and I think most of you are well aware, implement community caches. I am feverishly spending your money, trying to get that put in place. It is not as easy as one would think to place a 20-foot container somewhere in the city, nor is there necessarily the right locations. Councilor Casper and I and Councilor Mark have talked about the Cutler City area and just not enough high ground close. So we will continue to work on that. I've got a good relationship with Lincoln County and the school district with the caches they have. I'm getting ready to purchase 5 more containers and place them around the city, and working on basic needs, food, water, and shelter. And then we'll get a little fancier with more stuff as time goes on. And I'm looking at placing them in each portion of the city, starting with Cutler City, Taft, Nelscott, working my way up to Taft, because I believe the lower part of the southern end of the city risks greater danger with the tsunami and the earthquake. Next bullet, develop a city fuel plan. Just had a tabletop exercise with the county. Fuel's like water, very hard to manage. And when it's in great required need by the police department, the public works department, the fire department, that type of thing, you really have to have a solid plan on how to manage it, how to conserve it, and how to deal with the issues if your city doesn't have a good road network. You may need to have landing sites for helicopters to bring in fuel bladders, even down to the simple things that not everybody has the same nozzle on a fuel truck or a fuel bladder. We found that out at the tabletop exercise. So a lot there to work on as we do that. The last bullet on that page is develop city points of distribution. These can be for many things, but primarily my focus here is space where you can have more food, more water, first aid supplies, different basic things that families need after a disaster, and almost have it set up in a buffet line where you can drive through and people will help you load stuff into your car and get stuff. So we will be working on that as we develop it. Top bullet on this page, develop city debris management plan. As we talked earlier, again, very complicated. You have debris that's mixed during a disaster. It doesn't have to be a tsunami, even a good flood. I remember working the floods in Tillamook in the early 2000s, and you had floating propane tanks up and down Highway 101. Not something you want to run down with a scoop loader and load up and move. And you have a lot of sharp debris, you have a lot of hazardous material, you even have very sensitive issues. If you have people killed, it could be part of that debris. It becomes a very sensitive and a political issue. So we'll be looking at that. And even to the simplest thing that we may not have enough space in our landfills for metric tons of material. Next point on that is develop an emergency power plan. Again, power is one of those things that everybody wants. And so we'll be taking a look at how we can have different types of emergency power throughout the city, whether it's to charge your cell phone or who knows what. People want power. And so we'll be taking a look at how that might work out. Third bullet there on that slide is develop a city sheltering plan. Actually, we have some pretty good things already set up with the sheltering plan with the churches and the different schools that we could possibly use if the students aren't in school, and some of the different facilities that we might be able to use. And I'm trying to take a look at every possible thing that might be used. I went up and measured the parking lot at the casino on the third tier. You know, looked at the parking out here on this level and at the outlet mall, all good spaces depending on if they survive for shelter. And so trying to develop that so you have enough throughout the entire city for people to go to. Fourth bullet on that page is a develop communications plan. Goes without saying, who knows what will work after a disaster, and come up with a list of different types of things that we have at our disposal to use to communicate. So we'll be looking at that, and this even includes things like government emergency telephone system. It's a card that you can get issued that gives you priority if the phones are working, and there's also a thing called wireless priority service, which is for cell phones. Same type of thing. The network can shut everybody down and give you priority. Just two options that are out there that we can sign up for. And the final one there is interesting. This is not going to save the world, but it's going to save people money. Develop and determine eligibility to participate in the National Flood Insurance Rating System. I put that on there because to get into this system is relatively easy. And the good thing about it is, in the first couple steps, you can save people in this community anywhere from 5 to 10% on their insurance rates with really very little effort. So I think that is one of those that I would consider low-hanging fruit, and I think is goodwill towards the citizens of our community. And we have over 700 flood insurance policies in Lincoln City. So I think there's a substantial amount of people that we could help. Now, the system gets harder. It starts out at level 10 and goes to level 1, which is like 50% savings. But FEMA did not make it easy getting to 1. You have to do some very, very serious things, ordinances, changes in how flood plains are managed, and that type of thing, if you really want to achieve that kind of savings. But the first few steps, I think, are easy to do and will help a lot of people save money. These are the hazard mitigation slides, and pending your questions, that is all I have.
That's great. Ken, if I could, last week, some of us met with the county commissioners. They had a budget committee hearing here in this chambers. And they made a note on their budget about Emergency Operations Center in Newport. So my question, I took the opportunity to, if they weren't aware, that we were building a new hospital and police station with a expanded dispatch center and emergency center. And I got the sense from them that thank you, but everybody's got to have their own kind of noise back at me. So my question of you, is that a truism? Does an emergency center, operations center that you were talking about, exclusive to Lincoln City, or?
It is a truism.
Okay,
Everybody has to have one.
okay.
There's not a requirement, actually, but most people desire to have one.
So in thinking again of citizens' tax revenue, Newport and the county seat may work together more likely than,
Yeah, I would concur, Mayor. Since they're one and the same, City of Newport and the county, it would be great to just have one. To me, that's fiscally more responsible, but I'm not sure that's the way that will work.
thank you. I was just looking to combine things if possible.
Right.
Other questions of Ken? Yeah.
Ken, thanks. Just kicking around the back of my head as I'm seeing the need to be prepared for emergency generators and power and, communication systems and all that. I wonder if there's a role for solar panels to be encouraged or somehow incorporated as a, last resort type, not a last resort, but something that could be used, but that we would have if we run out of fuel, we run out of this and we run out of that.
I would agree, Counselor. I think solar panels is something that people should look at very seriously, whether it's retail industry or government. I think a lot more people are learning the value of them. They are a little expensive, maybe not necessarily the solar panel, but the batteries, that I think surprise people once they see how many batteries it takes. But I know for me personally, I have a little portable solar panel in a little leather case that I use for my phone, and so I can always charge it anywhere. But I do believe there's a future in really taking a look at how some of these things, if you may have an established facility, whatever it may be, that has a backup generator, it might be cost effective to see how to wire it for solar panels, to have that option, especially something critical like a hospital. But I do believe there's a future for it.
Other questions? No, I just lost it.
Shall
So
I go?
That's all right. It went.
I had
Shall I go while you're
Yeah, oh,
thinking?
please. I did.
We've had this conversation before, and those of us who were on the previous council did as well. One of the things that I think is important, as we are a tourist industry town, and in the summer we have more tourists than we do have residents, and whether it's a fire or the earthquake and then the tsunami, and I understand the caches, but I'm just wondering how we can move in the direction of getting the lodging industry ready for that, ready for the folks that they're housing during that time, and how we can make that connection.
I think, Counselor, the lodging industry, without doing a lot of homework on this, I would almost think that I would need to sit down with each one of them, or if they have an association, and just be very frank with them and ask them, how do you educate your guest? Is it nothing, or is it a piece of paper, or is it something in the room or in the house, or whatever the case may be? And have you thought about your facility housing people after a disaster? Now, one thing I can tell them for a fact is, if it's a declared disaster, which in most cases with an earthquake and tsunami, it's all reimbursable from FEMA. So if they housed people, they could get reimbursed for all of that. But I think it's something you almost have to sit down and have that conversation with each one of them to see how serious they are, because I understand they're here to make money, and they're here to provide a service to the tourists that come to the community. And I've told a couple of you My first experience is when I was entering a tsunami evacuation zone in the southern coast many, many years ago. I came back a few days later and the signs were chainsawed down. So things have come a long way, with the signage and everything that we put in the communities. But I think, again, my estimation, counselors, you just really got to sit down almost with each one of them and just be frank and honest and ask them what is their plan, how do they deal with that. Because I think they will find, in my experience and work in some other parts of the country, if people are staying in a facility, they're going to expect that facility to know what to do. And I know in some of the professional associations I belong to, we will not stay in a hotel unless we review their emergency plan. And separates a lot of people out. So I think that's probably the answer that I would provide at this point in time.
So could that be on your to-do list there? I see you have a long one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I did want to
Yep.
bring up our email between the city manager and I on fire. You had mentioned. And just a reminder, I don't know your experiences, but I think May is awfully early to have a fire watch in Lincoln City and Lincoln County. So I hope that we are very vigilant. I will pepper you with emails when I see these things happening and coming. These hot temperatures set records on the coast and in the valley, and with the wind, that's just, kind of your automatic drying agent, and the low humidity, I believe, is around 20% during those couple hot days, which is just a recipe for disaster. So I think with tourist season, the 4th of July, and many things coming up, we're going to have to be very vigilant in how we look at these things.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Just to follow up, which made me, of course, think of the fire pit a couple houses away that's just burning away. The people get tired, they go to bed, and of course it's next to trees, and so I'm just worried about how we want to handle fire pits during fire season. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It is a concern. I think most of the statistics will show that at least half of all fires are human-caused.
So I'm assuming this is not the last we've heard from you, and you will be
No, this is just
keeping
an
us
intro.
informed and asking us to take action.
Just an
when
intro,
necessary.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for this presentation.
All right. I'm not going to touch the computer.
Only in emergencies.
You did a good job.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, we're going right into public hearings. We have a public hearing. It is now 6:59 p.m. The hearing is now open regarding the request for an exemption to the competitive bidding process for the West Devils Lake Road Bridge Replacement Project. The purpose of the hearing is to take oral and written comments on the city's draft findings in support of an exemption for competitive bidding under ORS 279C or .335 for the construction of the West Devils Lake Road Bridge Replacement Project. Councilors, are there any abstentions or disqualifications based on conflicts of interest or personal bias? Seeing and hearing none. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of a counselor to participate in this matter? Seeing none. I might point out, if you wish to speak, please write your name and mailing address clearly on the sign-up list at the entrance. Please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name only. If you also have written testimony to submit to the record, please provide a copy to the recorder. Staff can present their report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Public Works Department is getting ready to implement the agency agreement we have with ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation, to manage the construction, the design and construction of this bridge. When we came to you with the agency agreement, we explained that the bridge is very compromised. It needs to be, it's on the top of the list. It needs to be replaced, and it's also in a critical corridor for emergency vehicles or anyone going to the hospital or using that side of using East Devils or West Devils Lake Road. So anyway, because of the criticality of this project, the importance for us to get it right and for us to get it within our budget that ODOT's given us, we are asking that the council approve an exemption from the public bidding process and do a design build for this project. I did, each of these findings, we've done a few of these, but they're very accustomed to this project. So I believe all of those findings that we published, they give a breadth of the reasons why we're asking for this exemption and the value to the public for this exemption. So I've made that case. Also let you know, when we publish this, we offer that the findings be, that some people can request the findings, and usually at that point they would show up here and have some questions or something, but we didn't get any comments. I didn't get any requests to send anyone the findings, so no one seemed to care or disagree with the findings, I guess. So with that, just ask for a motion to approve the exemption from the competitive bidding process for the West Devils Lake Road Bridge Replacement Project and approve the draft findings or make corrections or changes to those findings.
Counselor, is there any questions of staff regarding their report? Counselor Mark?
Hi, Stephanie. So I read through the proposal here, and I'm inclined to accept your recommendation. I just wasn't real clear to me why this project needs to be handled differently than a normal construction project.
Sure.
What's the advantage?
Well, the advantage, and again, this is really for this bridge, the advantage is that you hire an engineer and a contractor, a team together. So there's no length of time where an engineering firm is going to sit down and do 100% design, put it out for bid, and then you get a contractor who may or may have some alternative ideas on how to improve or be more cost efficient. By the time the design is 100%, you're really not getting your value engineering up front. So this is a way for the team of a contractor and the engineer to get together and design. We'll know at 30% what our number's looking like because the contractor will be able to give us numbers. Contractors will have a level of certainty on their markup, so they're not in it for other than just to do the project and get their markup. So their incentive is to do it efficiently as well. And I talked to a lot of people recently at a conference about this project and this idea of going with the design build, and everyone I talked to, engineers and other public works directors from other cities, agreed that this is a good approach for the best efficient, especially the other key is we're going to have to close that bridge down. We're going to have to close that road down, and there'll be alternative routes only. And so we need someone who isn't going to play around when they get this contract. They're going to know the contractor. The advantage of the contractor being part of the design is they'll know right away what to get going on. They can pre-order some long lead item things that, one example. So there's definitely, I believe, there's definitely an advantage to the cost and to the schedule for going with this approach.
Other questions? Stephanie, mine is, are there, is there a list of ODOT recommended folks that have done bridges around the state that you'd be picking from? Or is there someone in your hip pocket?
No, the ODOT does have a list of consultants, and so those will be the only consultants that will be eligible to bid on our proposal, to propose on our request for proposal.
So we'd go off that list, or they would be informed?
Yes,
and
we'll post it, but we'll make sure that everyone on that list, there's a mail list to them, and we'll just make sure that they get the request for proposals.
All right. Mr. Parsons, you all right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Council questions. Any comments from members of the public? Any questions? Seeing none. Others, including any testimony from representatives of public agencies? Seeing none. Is there a motion from the council to close the hearing and close the record?
I move to close the hearing and the record.
Second.
Is there a, yep, there's a motion with a second from Mr. Parsons to close the hearing and the record. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Passes. Thank you. Record is closed. What say you? Want a
Mr. Mayor?
motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the exemption to the competitive bidding process for West Devils Lake Bridge, or Road Bridge replacement project, and approve the draft findings.
Second.
The motion to approve with a second from Councilor Mark. Questions, deliberation? Roll call, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Timing on that?
We're ready to
Go right
put
out.
we need to move right
So-
on it.
So that would put, when would perhaps construction take place time? I know you, just a range, fall or?
Yeah, at least, yeah, it will be into the end of this year.
Okay.
Before we probably get going. But,
So
it depends. I mean, it could be 6 months.
before?
Early as 6 months, we could get started, but it'll depend.
Great. Yes.
I'm wondering, is there anything out of the ordinary we might do, Mr. Chandler, to alert the public and designate alternate routes and that sort of thing? Or everybody's just going to know?
Well, we'll do a part of the, if I may, part of the consultant scope of work will be to develop a public outreach, because yes, this will be very critical to be communicating with everyone, the whole town really, but definitely. I've already spoken a little bit to the hospital, we're aware. So that will be part of what we will do. And we'll know more too, when and more specifics before we just, start telling them it's going to happen.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have a public comment opportunity now. This is a public comment on the proposed fees increases as reflected in Resolution 2019-11. Is there anyone present that would like to make a comment on that fee schedule? Seeing none, we'll move on then to resolutions. We have a resolution 2016-06. This is Explore Lincoln City Grant Guideline Approval. I don't know if you need Mr. Drysdale. Who will permit extensions?
Ed Drystad, Explore Lincoln City. At the last council meeting, we had a request for some corrections to be made in the document. and these have been made on the cover page. The dates were incorrect. Those have been updated. If you look at page 3, we use the word incremental. There was discussion as to what that actually meant. We changed it to new. On page 4, there was a concern that events that occur over a long period of time were not given enough time to do their end-of-event report. So that was changed to 60 days after the final day of the event, rather than 50 days from the or 60 days from the start. And if you look on page 7, there's a clarification there that did say such policy will be at the business's own expense. It now says applicants. So the sentence before it and the sentence after are both using the same word. At the bottom of page 7, the amount of the award has been capped at $25,000. So that's as much as you can ask for, and realistically, no one has ever asked for more than that. On the next page, page 8, the city will inform grant applicants on grant allotment decisions within 10 days after the ELCC presents their recommendations to the ELC director. That's to address the one time when we had a very long delay between the announcement and when the grants were considered. On page 9, excuse me, payments are based on the completion of tasks by deadline. If a marketing plan is not turned in and no grant payment awarded, recipient can still turn in a marketing plan and a final report to receive a final report grant payment as long as the final report requirements are met. This is a clarification. We have had instances where the deadline was missed on the middle payment. You get paid a third, a third, a third. The question was, if you miss that middle payment, does that mean you miss the final payment also? That's not the way we've done it. If you catch up on your work, you can still get the final payment. That's a clarification of that. And I do believe that's it. So hopefully this answers all the questions the council had, corrects the typos, and has language that everyone feels is acceptable. The one thing in here that is not addressed, and it's something I brought up, is should we be having annual grant awards, or should we do it twice a year? Logistically, there are so many things that we would have to consider would not be able to make this year's grant program to be able to do it. So I want to bring that up for consideration with the next ELCC committee meeting, have them begin to talk about that, but proceed as if we're doing an annual grant this time around, and if we decide to go twice a year, that'll be next year when we do it.
Questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor?
I just have one question. Thank you for all the updates to your document. Perhaps I missed this the first time around because it could have happened. But there's a $50 fee for applying, and I'm just curious why that is, because this is city funding and, well, it's the TRT money, but it said somewhere, now I can't find it.
Oh, that's
$50
no, that's not
application fee.
The application fee is for events. If you're going to get an event permit, there's a $50 fee. There's no fee for applying for a tourism grant.
Okay. And why is that?
We're just nice to people that apply for grants.
Okay, then why is it that we aren't nice to people? I mean, why is there a fee associated with an application for events?
That's been the case since I've been here, and that predates me starting with Lincoln City. To be honest with you, from my point of view, it's there because it's always been there. And this is the first time it's been brought up or challenged. It's probably something we need to look at.
I'd like us to, because
So help me understand, your question is, should there be a fee for someone to do an event?
No, for the application.
Oh, he said it's not for the application.
No,
It's an event fee.
It's for
Oh,
the event
not the-
permit, not this
Oh, I see.
application.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a permitting fee, it's not.
That's fine then.
Yeah, sorry.
I got
Any other,
misread it.
any questions on the guideline changes? Okay. Entertain a motion on the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2016-29 as written. Am I in the wrong number?
2019-06.
Oh, of course. 2009-1906, repealing Resolution 2019-29, right?
Back to page 40.
Are you,
Am I missing something?
no, is that the right?
It's for, yeah, it's approval of Resolution 2019-06, repealing Resolution 2016-29.
Second.
Got a motion to approve and a second by Counselor Parsons. Any further deliberation? Seeing none. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Thank you. Resolution 2019-08, approval of permit and concession addendum.
Your Honor, Counsel, I'll take this one. This resolution is simply to approve a standard form, so concessions will basically be in substantially the form you see. I wrote this more generically so that it can be used in the 3 different instances where we have concessions. One is a straight parks concession agreement. One is a special or street vendor, and the other would be a special event. So we did circulate this among staff with those departments to see if we can get some consistency. I'm sure as we use it, we'll find issues and we'll bring those back to you. But it was better to agree upon a form, and in fact, the ordinance requires that we come to you and ask for approval of a standard form by resolution. So that's why we're here. There is later on the agenda, there is a resolution on fees, which you already had the public hearing or public comment for. And as you directed, we do have a standard 10% concession fee, but we are asking for approval of a daily rate as part of that item, which again, you can revise. We labeled it as an interim daily rate so that we can look at it and revise it when we come back with the omnibus fee resolution. So that's something to use while we're working on, is there a better rate? So with that, I'd ask for approval of Resolution 2019-08, establishing the standard form concession addendum, which goes with those 3 permits, as I mentioned.
Any questions of staff from council? Hearing none, then entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-08.
Second.
We have a motion to approve with a second from Casper. Any further deliberation? All those in favor of approval of Resolution 2019-08, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none. Thank you. And we have Resolution 2019-09, a resolution of the City of Lincoln City adopting updated special event permit application and guidelines.
Your Honor, Counsel, Ed's coming up to the podium, but this is another one of those standard forms, special event in this case, where we're up, Liz has taken a lot of time, and staff as well, creating a fillable form to try to expedite this, and so this is a lot of hard work on the part of the department to make things more user-friendly. So, again, asking for approval of Resolution 2019-09. Ed, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Get this in line with
The new ordinances.
Any questions, Counselor Henson?
Okay, on packet page 80, which you probably don't have, let me see if it says,
The
there it
fif-
goes again.
The $50 application fee.
Thank you. My
Um,
laptop is not cooperating.
It
Yeah,
didn't-
that fee is to pay for staff time. A permit will go through 8 different departments by the time it's okayed, and that,
So this is an application fee for the permit? I can't see it anymore on my laptop because it crashed, but,
Yeah, there is a $50 application fee for a special event permit. That has been the fee for a long time. It does not represent the actual cost because, frankly, it goes through many departments, including outside the city. It goes to the fire marshal now, and so we have been coordinating a lot of things for the $50 fee. I think the only change is that the $50 fee will apply to all applicants, including not-for-profit entities.
And if I might clarify that this was in the staff report.
Yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't clear that it's for the actual event permit, so.
Yeah, it's a special event
Yeah.
permit. And again, the fee is actually, has already been established. This is just to clarify.
All right. Any other questions? Move for entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2019-09.
Second.
Second from Mr. Parsons. We have Resolution 2019-09, motion with a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none, thank you. And we have Resolution 2019-10, formation of an ad hoc committee for Roads End Villages Area Plan.
Your Honor, Council, I'll do this one. The Lincoln City Municipal Code requires that the council form an ad hoc committee by resolution. And that's what the purpose of this resolution is. The Urban Renewal Agency's consultant has given you a list of people that they think should be, or positions that they think should be on the committee, which includes 2 community members, as well as the other listed representatives. After you pass this resolution, we'll simply follow our ordinance on boards and committees. We have a process for filling committees, so we'll follow that process. So you'll see it under the appointed bodies ordinance. You'll see an application, or there'll be some kind of notice of that availability of these positions, and then we'll bring it back to you for appointment, and you'll do the interviews. Obviously, I don't think we'll interview the mayor or the urban renewal chair. Certain people, obviously, will skip that. But where there's a representative, we'll bring it back through the normal process. So, and again, this is just for this was formed basically at the request of the urban renewal consultant to get the Roads End process moving. So, again, we're asking for approval of Resolution 2019-10 to form an ad hoc urban renewal advisory committee.
And again, for clarification, this is for the potential formation of a new urban renewal district.
In Roads End.
In Roads End.
Roads and villages.
Villages, right.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
assuming that this committee keeps minutes as well? Is that true?
Yes, all ad hoc committees will follow all public meetings law as provided in the appointed bodies ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm just curious, that some of them are prescribed, the positions, and 2 of them are really ad hoc. And how, I know you're referring us to the ordinance about how to, but what is the process for the?
The normal
At
process is
large.
we'll give notice of availability that we have some open positions, and So
So
there-
just like on other committees.
yeah, and so we'll maybe get some interest in the community member ones, which is the only one really that's truly open. The others are, I guess there's some choice about what the school district's representative will be or whatever, but for the most part, it's really just the community member position. So I don't imagine it would take very long, but we would just have the council, one of the things you could do to expedite things would be, Your Honor, you could ask for volunteers to interview these, and if you want to move things along so we don't have to wait. Who would you want to designate to interview the two community members as a subcommittee? You know, well, actually, you don't do it as a subcommittee. You do that typically, but so if after approving this you wanted to ask for volunteers to do the interviews, that would be great.
Any other questions? Councilor Mark?
It just jumps out at me that the mayor is designated as a member, but no other city council members. I'm just wondering, does that matter? I mean, should it be the mayor? Should it be a Ward 1 councilor? Or?
It's, again, this advisory committee was recommended by Elaine Howard Consulting, who is our urban renewal consultant, and why she chose these, I don't know. And urban renewal is not here to ask, so. Oh.
Let's have Allison come forward as Urban Renewal Director.
Hi, thanks. Yes, the list was provided by our consultant, and it's basically the positions that she has seen need to be there for various reasons. It's supposed to span community, it's supposed to span taxing districts. It's also open to the public. There'll be public meetings. So that was her suggested and pretty much her routine list when she is consulting with communities on creating new urban renewal areas. That's kind of her nuts and bolts of who should be there. We obviously, it's only 3 meetings, and then it would be a couple of community open houses, so it's not too onerous, but we do have a second district that we'll be asking for some time on, and we don't want to, we want to be efficient with time, but we don't want to ask too much either, so.
I might point out that the Urban Renewal Chair, which is on this list, happens to be a Ward 1 city councilor. So
In the area.
you're in the area. Any other questions of Allison or staff? Thank you, Allison. With that, take a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
To make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-10, approving the formation of an ad hoc urban renewal plan advisory committee for the Rhodes End Villages area.
Second.
We have a motion with a second by Councilor Casper. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none. Any councilors here that would like to be involved in interview? What are there, two community members?
I would.
Okay,
I will.
Parsons and Hinton. Is that all right? I guess they're both ward. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Do we care? I'm looking at Councilor Mark. And do we want that kind of weight up there? Not weight, but all from the same area?
We're not on the committee, we're just interviewing.
I hear you. All right, well, if acceptable, you got 2 interviewers. Thank you. Thanks, both of you. Resolution 2019, a resolution of the City of Lincoln City adopting, updating fees and charges for parks and recreation, special events, and street vending.
Your Honor, Jeannie's coming up. I just wanted to point out I handed out just an updated, clean version of the attachment, which includes everything that was on the documents in the packet, but also it just cleans it up because it's just the fees that are new or increased, and with a note that 2 fees are not readopted. And I did hand out a revised resolution which modified Section 3, and the modification was basically the attached exhibit is adopted, and the additional sentences were parks fees that are removed are also noted on the schedule, and that's the note that 2 fees are not being carried forward. And all other fees and charges not inconsistent with this resolution remain in full force and effect. So what happened was staff reduced this schedule to be just the fees that are new, or fees that are increased, or the note about the 2 fees that are no longer going to be going forward. And that's just cleaning up what was in the packet, which was more explanatory about what the changes were, the increase from one fee to another.
Questions of staff?
Your Honor, Counsel, I should point out that there is basically a non-parks thing which is included in the body of the resolution, which is to say that the daily rate for parks concessions, special event vendors, and street vendors shall be $50 per day. That's Section 2 of the ordinance. And that's just to be clear that street vending typically isn't actually a parks thing. So we did put that in the body of the resolution, not in the attachment.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Hey, Gene. So I'm just noticing that there are a lot of fees listed in the original agenda that went from 0 to something. Like, so is that if a small group wants to rent a picnic table, or wants to reserve a picnic table, or part of a park for a couple hours, they now have to pay and they didn't used to? Is that what's happening?
So
Would
what?
now have to pay.
Yes, and Counselor Mark, if you could tell me where that 0 was to,
Well,
the non-applicable?
right.
Yes, I can explain that. Prior to this fee resolution, we only permitted 5 parks in our park system, and we have 35 parks and open spaces. So along with Richard Apichello, Explore Lincoln City, my staff in Parks and Recreation, we decided to permit 11 of our parks rather than 5. So there's 6 of them that didn't have park permit fees tied to them in previous years.
So before you just couldn't get a permit, it was just sort of, if somebody grabbed the
Exactly.
table, I see.
And we heard from a lot of the public that they'd like to have the opportunity to get a permit in case they'd like to do a family reunion or a wedding, so now we offer that.
And if
They're
you-
still welcome to come and use it publicly if no one's there.
Free, the ordinance provides for free use of our parks, except when you want exclusive use, then you come in for a permit and you pay the applicable fee.
And that was true in certain parks, but now it's going to be true in more parks.
More parks, correct, yep.
Other questions? Hearing none. Entertain a motion.
Sample. Here we go. I'll move that we approve Resolution 2019-11, 2019-11.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Casper to approve Resolution 2019-11. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed with a nay? Hearing none? Approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We have special order of business. We have, economic toolbox.
Oh, no.
Come on up.
Deja vu all over again.
Yeah, right.
How do we rerun the day?
Evening.
Evening.
Okay, so I'm not sure how much to go over since this was discussed at the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, so I'll try to be brief.
Well, I would hope maybe for our audience,
Yes.
we could refer them to the urban renewal meeting that was just prior to this one, and they could hear a long discussion on the toolbox.
Sure.
That would help.
I think so. Basically, what we're here to do this evening is to, because Urban Renewal Agency and City are two separate entities and have two separate associated budgets, we're having the same conversation at both. And so tonight, we'd like to present the City Council with additional information on the options for economic development tools, answer any council questions about how to accomplish the council objectives, and then determine staff direction. At the agency meeting, you all went ahead wearing your other hats and moved forward all of the tools that were presented to you in concept. So staff recommends that you do the same thing for the city, keeping in mind that with agency funds, they can only be used for capital, whereas for city funds, you have a little more flexibility. The city funds would not be restricted to the urban renewal boundary or district. It would just be restricted to somebody being located within the city limits. So just want you to keep that in mind as well. So March 25th is the last time that we spoke about this at the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and again at the City Council meeting. And you all requested a little bit more information and some time to talk about the tools and priorities. So just for the viewing audience, there are 5 existing urban renewal tools so that if properties are located in the urban renewal district boundary, which is mostly along Highway 101, those 5 tools have been facade improvement loans for commercial properties, energy efficiency loans, again, commercial properties, business expansion loan, and a local program support grant, in addition to the downtown manager tool, which is a 2-year pilot project with a capped limit per year, which is in the last bit of its funding. And of the tools that were made available, there are some tools that can be used for housing, some tools that can be used for property development, whether it be for public properties or for private properties. And again, these tools are in concept as of now. As there is public interest or interest from our partner developers on these tools, then we will be bringing these forward to our Urban Renewal Loan Committee to discuss, and then bringing that either forward to City Council or forward to the Urban Renewal Agency for discussion and consideration. Some of the tools that were discussed at the March 25th meeting that you all asked for a little bit more information on included internet assistance, which is included in the Infrastructure Partners tool. So that might be for a business that needs some broadband facility or infrastructure that they is preventing them from being able to do work here. Housing over commercial, which is included in the mixed-use housing loan tool. Childcare, which would allow partnering on business for businesses that need some capital, or in this case for the city, could be operations temporary as a pilot project, or again, you have more flexibility with city funds for childcare businesses. Internet commerce conversion loan, energy efficiency loan, facade improvement loan, those 2 would basically be available, again, not restricted to the urban renewal boundary, and then also to include the option for residential rather than restricting it to commercial. Assistance if people have brownfield properties or their properties are just not redeveloping. A gap funding tool if there's a developer that is struggling with having some need for funding in order to move their project forward. Being the gap, being the small part, not being the majority of the project, obviously. And then workforce housing loans and sign change-out grant. There are some other tools that were not mentioned that are in the packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions or help your discussion in any way.
Questions from council? Any? I guess you've hit on them, so a good reminder is now that you're talking to city council, any tools would go to a wider geography than the urban renewal district, or be utilized in. And if I recall from budget committee, there's substantially less dollars in this pot that would be utilized. So I guess I would ask staff's opinion, if it makes sense, again, to target these tools and dollars to developers of public property.
I believe we have a responsibility to see through our development offerings to that development community. So if you're asking my opinion, I would say yes. And that's primarily because, as you mentioned, it is $100,000, significantly less than urban renewal has available.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So, Allison, a question that was nagging in the back of my mind during the urban renewal session was that at one point, I seem to recall reading that the facade improvement loan was something like, the fund, in other words, was substantially more. Wasn't it like $1.8 million, and that money was recirculating, or what am I remembering?
Yes. So the 1999 facade improvement loan was originally seeded with $1 million of urban renewal bond money. So as you might remember, urban renewal was $43 million of investment, and one of that 43 gave us this loan program that revolves. So as there are loans that are issued, those funds are repaid over time. If it's a property owner, it's 10 years. If it's a business owner, it's 5 years. And then those funds are made available again. So $1.8 million has gone through our loan program, which means we've loaned it out, it's been paid back, and we've almost doubled that $1 million lending out in the community.
And when the urban renewal district expires, does that fund expire also? In other words, if all that money, I guess see where I'm going, if all that money gets paid back, isn't that another fund that we have access to?
The boundary of urban renewal would go away. You, as an urban renewal agency, would decide what you want to do with your assets. So the money's not going to go away. It'll just continue to revolve, but you may or may not change the objectives of how you spend that money.
So as that money comes back to the program, is that becomes funds that are available to us beyond this 500,000 that we're talking about, or the 100,000 that we're budgeting? In other words, in the future, is that there's going to be more money out there?
I don't yet know. We have a couple years to figure that out. This is one of the assets that the Urban Renewal Agency will need to decide how to handle. So I think that you will be able to use it citywide because it's already gone out once and then been paid back. Can you use it for operations and maintenance? Still, the answer should be no, is the best practice. So
But
it still would have.
But for property rehabilitation?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The whole point of doing the revolving loan program is to keep it revolving. You want to really make the money leverage and work, go out and work, and then come back and benefit other people. Yeah.
So, Allison, to follow up with that, even now, in the urban renewal, and I apologize, for that facade loan, as it loans out under the guidelines and comes back, it goes back into the pot for more facade loans.
Correct.
Theoretically, and maybe that's what you're saying, is yet to be answered, the question 5 years from now, when that money comes back in, does it wash itself of the rules to where it could be spread out over all the tools, or does it have to stay in a fund for facade loans?
So yeah, it gets confusing. The facade loan program So there's two line items in the budget. One is for economic development tools and one is for facade, but they're in the same fund. So those funds, even though they're called out separately, if we end up with more facade improvement loans than other economic development tools, we can move those economic development fund dollars up to meet the demand of the facade improvement loan. They're all in a fund. 832 is, I think it's called Property Rehabilitation Loan is the name of the fund. So that was originally the entire intention. Now we're talking about different intentions. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but yes, it would go into the Property Rehabilitation Fund, which is basically our Economic Development Toolbox Fund.
Okay. But I think Councilor Mark is looking down the road. Could it be used, if there isn't the demand for it, rather than sitting idle, could it be used for childcare facilities or some of the other, the GAP loans? And maybe we're ahead of ourselves as far as...
I was more thinking in terms of, so we have information here that the Urban Renewal Agency has budgeted about $500,000 for this property rehab program fund.
No.
And the city has budgeted, now I lost mine, the city has budgeted $100,000 for economic development tools. What I'm wondering is that $1 million that is circulating.
It's circulating. It will always remain an asset of the Urban Renewal Agency.
So we'll always have that whatever
Yes.
isn't loaned out right now, we'll always have that to draw on. And facade improvement is a pretty broad category, as we discussed earlier.
Yes. Yes, you'll always be able to draw on it unless it's eroded by grants or servicing fees, like for our outside loan officer to do all the financial
or bad loans.
paperwork and, yeah, exactly, loan underwriting. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Hearing none.
We're saying in this case, it sounds like it makes a little more sense to be a little more restrictive?
I think it does, simply because there's a wider...
We don't have 400,000. We have 100,000.
And there may make sense to put a sunset on it, like, that whether, rightfully, I'm thinking of how do we get these 9 properties developed and what might be asked for, and is 12 months a reasonable amount of time for them, developers, to make an ask? So if they don't, then can we open it up to, if we want to, at least to deal with it in 12 months?
12 months from now should be sufficient in the progress they're making, especially given the fact that there are time frames that will expire within that time for completing the negotiations.
Let's do it.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that urban renewal staff be directed to proceed with developing all of the agency city economic development tools as the budget allows, with the provision that the staff focus on public projects with a, how do we want to phrase it? 12-month, give me some
Are
language.
you talking about the development offerings? Yeah, I'd say the public development offerings.
Or partnership properties,
Yeah.
sure.
Partnership properties? How do I get 12 months in there?
Yeah, just with a 12-month sunset provision to relook at it in that restriction in 12 months.
What are we restricting applications?
You're restricting the applicants only to those developers who are developing public property for 12 months.
The application has to be in 12 months.
Yeah.
You may also want to decide if you want it to be our public property or any public property.
Oh, good
Isn't
point.
that what public property means?
Our
Well-
Lincoln City public property or urban renewal, it within,
So I'm moving that the urban renewal staff be directed to proceed with developing all of its designated agencies, city economic development tools, with the provision that these tools be used for proposals regarding city public property submitted within next 12 months. Partner projects at city public property.
is that all right?
If that works,
Perfect.
I'll second.
Urban?
We have a motion with a second by Mr. Parsons. So for clarification, what we're asking urban renewal to do is utilize their toolbox, their economic toolbox for the city's benefit. It is, because the motion talked about urban renewal staff, but I guess I want to make sure it's clear, in this case, we're looking at city.
Oh, I see. The economic development team, staff. That's a separate department, so economic development staff?
Yes, I apologize. So in the staff
Okay.
report, I was being lazy. I did one staff
Right.
report for both.
Sorry, Ken.
So where it says agency/city, in this case, it would be
City.
city rather than agency.
right.
Yes.
Try it again.
You want to? No. Don't.
I-
We've got it on
I
rec-
trust the city recorder.
We've got it on recording, right?
Want to do it again?
I think I can figure it out. If I know what your phone number is.
You know where I live.
We have a motion with a second. Any further deliberation, clarification, concerns? Being money involved, is that a roll call? Can we just do,
I think a roll call would be nice.
okay, roll call, please.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. We have tax abatement for affordable housing.
Your Honor, Council, I'll take this item. Essentially, please understand this is only initiation of a code amendment under 1788-020B. I am not asking you to do anything other than initiate an amendment. I'm not asking, the city is not asking that you adopt the statutes that are attached, or that you adopt the City of Newport ordinance that's attached, or you adopt, those are examples of a land use amendment, which is what this is, that was processed through the regular land use amendment process at the City of Newport. And you can see the participation of the county there with their resolution, so there was intergovernmental cooperation. I'm not asking for anything other than let's run this through the process. So again, we're not here to answer all the questions about the City of Newport's ordinance or how they got from point A to point B. We just want to let you know, here's an example of how it worked, and the planning director will, I guess the planning director could have just initiated this on her own, but we wanted you to know about it, and the URA director asked us if we can take a look at it, and so that's why we're here. Again, we're not trying to get it all adopted today. This is just to start the process, and this isn't the ordinance we will be adopting. It's just an example of an ordinance that does what the statutes provide. So with that, we're just looking for a motion to initiate the process.
So questions, and again, initiating the process is to better understand the process?
No, under Title 17 in 1788, a land use amendment needs to be processed, initiated by motion of the council, motion of the planning commission, or the direction of the planning director. In this case, because it was something you don't usually see from a planning director, we brought it to you with an example of how it's been done in other jurisdictions.
Again, I guess, there's no property in mind, there's nothing, this is,
Well, like things we were just talking about, the economic development, there is a possibility that some of the people negotiating with the city will want to utilize this
right.
tool in the toolbox, essentially, but we don't have it, so this is a way to initiate it.
Okay. Questions? Anybody? You noted in the staff report that we have done it in 95, and
Under a different section of the statutes. Yeah.
and I guess I'd be surprised if we haven't done it on other properties. But
I was aware of the one and the sections of the statutes that one was done under. This is a different section. And it has its own qualifications, and there's more in the statutes than just those.
it'd be good to have it in our toolbox, so I hear. So I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to initiate a code amendment pursuant to Lincoln City Municipal Code 17.88.020.B to adopt ORS 307.600 through ORS 307.637 and create necessary ordinance process to provide for property tax abatement and qualifying multiple unit housing in the city of Lincoln City.
Second.
Now, can you turn your computer off and redo that? That's what Councilor Bart needed. Yeah, we have a motion and a second from Councilor Casper. Any further deliberation? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Thank you very much. We have a construction contract award for the Northeast Surf and Northeast Devils Point improvements.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
So this is for street improvement project on what's known as Devil's Point, which is just north of the Ocean Lake Elementary School down to the skate park. We bid this project, we designed this in-house, we bid this project in February and opened bids in March. We received 2 bids, one from RK Concrete and one from Devil's Lake Rock Company. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was RK Concrete in the amount of $163,113.64. We sent out the notice, and what happened is Devil's Lake Rock made a mistake in their bid. They asked us to correct it, given the requirements under OAR's 137.049. There's things that you can correct on people's bids, and there's things that you can't. And we, Mr. Chandler reviewed their protest. We reviewed the statute, and he determined that Devil's Lake Rock did not meet their burden to demonstrate that that we had we had performed a violation by not accepting their bid as corrected. So,
Mayor, may I just jump in?
Sure.
There's a little bit of an update on that. Since making that determination, I have received a letter from Devil's Lake Rock just simply saying thank you for letting us know, and that was it.
Great. Thank you.
all right, so with that, we're recommending that council award construction contract to RK Concrete in the amount of $163,113.64 with a construction contingency of $16,311.36, 10% of the bid, for a total amount of $179,425.
And Stephanie, if you go back up on your staff report, I'm assuming that's a typo. You put out the bids February 2019, not 2018?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, that, yes.
That'd be a long time to wait.
That was
for-
a long
Long
bid,
time.
and we only got 2 bidders, and we had it open for a year.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? And this was a budgeted, funds are coming from,
Yes, the street capital.
okay. All right, entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Where did I go? I lost it. I'd like to make a motion to award RK Concrete, shoot.
142.
Award the contract for the Northeast Surf and Northeast Devils Point improvement to RK Contract, or RK Concrete in the amount of $163,113.64, with a construction contingency of $16,311.36, which is 10% of the bid, for a total amount of $179,425 and no change.
Second.
We have a second from Councilor Hinton, and a motion to approve. Any further deliberation or questions? Roll call, please.
Hinton,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
and Casper.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
How about city manager report?
I have 2 items to mention. First, I'm not sure if you have received this information. On Thursday, the 16th, we received from the county is the Lincoln County Technical Advisory Committee, which is going from 1:30 to 3:30. No, no, this is wrong.
Is it the housing one you're talking
Yeah,
about?
I think going from 1:30 to 3:30, and then the Policy Advisory Committee meeting is going from 4 until 6. Did I get that right, Kathy?
I believe so.
Yeah. And you are all invited to attend both meetings, of course, but the more critical of the 2 is the Policy Advisory Committee. It is being advertised in case a quorum presents itself, and that is being held here in this room. And then the second is that I have received a request that on Monday, May 20th, an hour prior to the Budget Committee meeting, that we hold a special City Council meeting with an executive session to discuss the potential purchase of property, particularly a property that can be used as transitional housing. I just needed to find out if that would meet your schedules, so that I can advertise that or not. It was discussed about trying to tie it in with the Budget Committee, but of course the Budget Committee is a separate entity from the City Council, so it would have to be before the Budget Committee meets, which would be at 4 o'clock.
So you're proposing the city council meeting executive session at 4?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is everybody clear
Works for me.
on that? Okay.
Can I ask, are you talking about an executive session standalone, or come out of executive session and have a meeting where you can take action?
I think would probably the latter, to give as much flexibility to the City Council as possible. If they come out and there's no action to take, then there's no action to take.
So do you want to start with a special meeting and adjourn to an executive session, or do you want to start with an executive session and then have a separate city council.
No, I think I'd like to start and then just adjourn, and then we come back and conclude the meeting,
That'll work for you
if
guys.
that's okay with this mayor and city council.
It's fine. Judy?
Mr. Chandler, can you enlighten me what the Policy Advisory Committee is? It's for the Lincoln Commissioners, or?
Oh, I've got 3 large documents.
It's the housing,
What's housing?
housing,
Yeah, it's
Okay,
the
I missed
Lincoln
that.
County
I missed
Housing
that part.
Strategy Plan.
strategy housing.
Okay,
For the
I-
region.
I guess, have you received these documents?
Yeah.
Okay, or do I need to send them out again? Or I haven't sent them, we just got to take, do you want me to send them? Okay, I'll send them in the morning. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Nothing? Nice haircut? Okay. No comments from the public? Seeing none? How about comments from city councilors? Councilor Mark?
Councilor Hinton and I are attending a small cities regional meeting Thursday. LOC, League of Cities. Open if anyone has anything that they'd like us to share, send me an email, or Deanna. I don't know specifically. And I'll let Mayor Anderson remind everybody about the neighborhood spaghetti dinner. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Councilor?
I have a request, and I can't remember, Mr. Chandler, maybe you can send it to us. My question is, I know that we have somewhere in our future to have a work session about a plastic bag ban or other items like styrofoam and straws and that whole long list. Do you know when that is? I've lost track.
We've been waiting until after the legislative session to see what they do, so it wouldn't be until the next fiscal year.
I don't think we have to wait. I'd rather not wait.
Well, the reason it's waiting is Newport's a great example. They adopted a law, they're going to have an election for something that the legislature has taken the steps to pass, and so we just thought it'd be great to see what the state's going to do before we tried to act on anything. It may be all mute.
Yeah, I don't, half of everyone isn't even showing up, so they're out of state, so I would think we should just move forward and have our work session.
I wouldn't agree. I agree with Mr. Chandler. The state has done away, they have passed legislation
Halfway.
on the styrofoam, the, whatever it's called. So those are now off the table, which is good, and they've done straw. So straws, so they're moving along.
And I believe the plastic bags made it through the House.
Is in motion, right? So I'm in favor of waiting. I think we can do it if we want to set something early in July, or I don't know when they get out, but make sure it's on a calendar. But at least we'll be more knowledgeable. Councilor Parsons?
So I think Newport's issue was it went to the voters. The voters said no. City council still did it. So now the voters are going back and saying you're not listening to us.
Right.
I don't think we are in that situation, are we? Did we ask our city residents if they would like this or not previously?
No.
Okay. So I don't think we're in the same situation as Newport.
I think the part that is similar, though, is that Newport should have waited.
Yeah.
Because the state is acting,
Right.
and now they've put themselves in having a special election that doesn't really mean very much.
So unless there's a huge need or
I'm in
push.
favor of waiting to see what the state does. Although
I don't like waiting.
that might not be welcome news when I get home tonight.
Okay.
I don't mind waiting either, and I want to announce that I think big companies are paying attention. I happen to be a healthy choice frozen dinner eater sometimes, and they have now, I just noticed, they have now provided a paper container instead of their plastic, and it's totally dissolvable. So I go, wow, that's a big company movement.
That's good to see. You had two items, Councilor?
Oh, I was just going to say that Planning Director Lindsay Schmel, if I say her name right, spoke at my neighborhood association meeting this weekend, and it is just, I just have to say it out loud, that she is a fast study. She knew the city inside and out. She could answer almost every single question, and they were flying at her. So I was really impressed by that, and thank her for her time.
Thank you, Ron, for letting her out and doing those kind of things. That's
We let her out of the cage every day.
well, I think it certainly
It's
proves very
fabulous.
of value. So, you all right? No?
Yep, that's it.
Councilor?
I just wanted to say that the Lincoln County Health Agency is now extending their walk-in counseling hours. We've always asked for more services up here, and it's at 4422 Northeast Devil's Lake. It's where the Veterans Clinic is, up by the DMV. And the hours are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1:30 to 2. I went up there on Tuesday to see how it works. You can come in and make an appointment for 2 weeks in advance. If you have a crisis emergency, they can direct you either to services at an appropriate time. But I was pleased to see that. There are 4 counselors available for individuals and 3 for family counseling. And if there's if we show a need for more time, which to me would make sense, 1:30 to 2 is like a sneeze, they will extend the hours. So I think it's a real big step in the door.
That's good. That's good information. Thank you for sharing.
I've stumbled through enough tonight. I'm good.
Don't worry about stumbling through anything. The 2 issues I have, both are for Wednesday, the 15th. You can start your morning with coffee with the mayor. Pacific Grind, and certainly counselors are welcome. Just don't give me a quorum. You buy your own coffee. That seemed to be a mistake or a miscommunication with some folks previously. So coffee with the mayor, Pacific Grind, 8 a.m. Wednesday the 15th. And then that evening, 5 o'clock, spaghetti dinner. This is out at B'nai B'rith Camp across the lake. Spaghetti dinner is a fundraiser for scholarship funds for Lincoln City kids to attend their day camp. So all the funds go towards scholarships, and target audiences are, certainly family promise kids, Head Start kids. We go through the schools and target young people because it's a great opportunity. If you haven't been to B'nai B'rith Camp, come out at 5 for a tour. It's a great facility, and then stay for good spaghetti. And we're in and out of there. What's that?
I'm going to be bussing tables,
Oh,
so you get to
see,
see me at work.
a little celebrity server there. So it's a lot of fun.
Mr. Mayor, do you have a number on like how many of our kids attend BB camp? Or
Well, the day camp?
in the summer, yeah.
Yeah, actually, now, it's just a day camp. I don't think a lot do the overnight camp, but they'll give us a number Wednesday night. But if I recall, it's like 250 kids
Oh, great.
go through the day camp program. And the other nice thing is they have meals, lunch, as well as some snacks and stuff. So they're tied into the ag department and get additional food
Everybody-
sources for
everybody
the
gets
kids.
a free book
And a free book. I mean, there are all sorts of
every week, right?
and swimming and in the pool and lake and all that art.
And am I correct that it costs about $120 a scholarship?
For a
Yeah,
week.
a week.
A week.
Yep, that's
Okay.
yeah, for a week. It's right in that range. I'm trying to think if I've left anything else, but the housing one was the only other one. So, any other thoughts? Sorry, we're shooting for 8 o'clock, so 8:15. We're getting closer.
Close
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Mics are off.